All right, everybody. We're here on Local Motives again with interesting neighbors, figuring out why they do what they do. We are honored today to have some very special guests, Jack and John from Ironworkers Bank, two guys that I've gotten to know over the last year, and they are a sponsor of Junction too. So we're proud to have their support. It makes this show possible. It makes the cafe possible, as well as the monthly newsletter that so many of you have shared your stories in. So we're truly grateful for that. Guys, thanks for being here. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come on over here.
Thanks for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Now, some of you will have read about Jack and his background, his story in the April issue, the Chad's Ford Means Business column. We talked a bit about his background and his business track record and acumen, which is substantial. We're going to get into a little bit about that here. And want to kind of go back to, your entrepreneurial journey, which you say in the article starts at 8 years old, okay? And as someone who has a son that right now, I have three sons, 7, 6, and 3, and they launched a year ago a business selling ramps, this wild garlic. And it's been an amazing thing to work with them to help them grow that business at a young age because they can learn so much so quickly. So I'm curious, what were you doing at 8 years old?
Well, 8 years old, I was picking up papers, cigarette butts, whatever it took to keep my father and my uncles happy.
Nice, cigarette butts. Okay, so and they were paying you. They were just paying you to keep the place clean, or?
Well, back in the we had the swim club. We had the White Sand Swim Club, and we had a lot of members. And anything that would be laying around, it was my responsibility to make sure the papers were picked up during the day, so I could go swimming.
And where was the swim club?
It was in Aston Township.
Okay. Is it still there?
No, it's not there. It's part of the Village Green Senior Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then your family, so it sounds like you guys had a number of businesses.
Yeah, we had recreational vehicles, mobile homes. We had a parts and accessory. We had a service center. We had 60 employees at one time.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, and then you also, I understand, were active in radio for quite a while, station manager and everything. So you got to feel pretty comfortable here in the booth, although it looks different now, right?
Yeah, it's much different now. Sitting here in the Junction Cafe, where we used to have a big studio and everything else. I guess it's much easier now to be able to put out a nice radio sound.
It is, yeah. You can get pretty good audio. Actually, this show was going to be a radio station actually approached us about doing a show, and I didn't want to do it really for about a year because just they wanted a weekly show, same kind of thing, talking to local people. But then the pandemic hit, and everything went dark, and they didn't kind of want people coming in as much. And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? I want to host the show in the community because we were going to have to go into the radio station in Westchester, and I wanted to host it at the Gables or different places in the actual community. And I started looking into it, and it's like, the equipment now and the technology is such that we can do this, have all the bells and whistles and broadcast. And so here we are. It's part of the reason why we bought Junction Cafe is to be able to sit down and talk to locals and share stories with the community. So it's been a lot of fun. Now let me shift gears and talk about the chamber because we're coming out of a year now where, it was. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say the most challenging year that businesses have ever faced. If you're alive and you own a business, this has been the most challenging stretch that we've probably ever gone through.
Yeah, the only thing worse was probably the depression or coming out of a war. I mean, I'm surprised that so many businesses have made it.
As a small business owner and someone who works with about 80 other small businesses, I've watched where you have some business, everyone didn't know how they were going to do at the beginning.
No.
Some realized they're actually going to do better than they thought and got busier. But even those guys, especially you look at like home improvement, they're busier, but then they have the disruptions of a guy gets sick. They got to the starts and stops of projects has been, the supplies have been disrupted. You look at the supply chain. And my point in all that is because most people are probably going to realize that, like, okay, yeah, it was a hard year, we get it, but where does as a guy who's been so instrumental in helping businesses and being involved in chambers and business networking groups and mentorship type programs and things like that, give us some perspective. Like what are some, if you're not involved in a chamber or a group like that, like what are some of the advantages of being a part of a community like that? What are some of the things that people might not, might be missing?
Well, what the missing is the contact, first of all. I mean, the human contact. I mean, that's what most people, I think, really miss after a while.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to get out and network your business, to be able to meet more business owners, meet more people from the community. And that's how your business will grow for many small businesses.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And I think, what's exciting, we've actually seen this starting to play out over the last month is some of these business groups, chambers, networking groups are moving from the virtual meetings back to some smaller in-person meetings, which is great because, I had one here this week. There were eight members, a subgroup of a business networking group. It's the first time they've gotten together as a group in over a year. And you could just sense the joy in the room. I mean, these people were just so excited. You get extroverts, business guys, biz dev guys. They're like, this is what they want. This is where they live.
Well, this is a great opportunity for businesses also when you get a chance to come in and be able to talk to you and go out over your podcast. Because one of the things we used to do at the Chamber, I had a radio show and I also had a TV show.
Wow.
And we did over 200 cable shows, and all of them were about business and business owners, how people got started in business. Because one thing one of the most questions I was asked by somebody who was not in business, how do I start a business? And that's where we developed a lot of our programming on getting your business started.
I'll tell you what, it's the greatest country probably in the world to start a business, right? The tools we have now, the access to capital, the things like that, you look at it and the things that we can do. You can create a website, you can create things now, easily. And at the same time, as someone who started 3 businesses, man, it is a hurdle. You need help. You need a team of people. You probably have to pay for some good partners, a good accountant, get a good banking relationship, get a good insurance guy. So there are some barriers you have to come to terms with, and I would say building that team is probably one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs underestimate the value of that up front.
Yeah, you need it. Matter of fact, I even wrote a book on all that. But one of the things that you really need is if you run into a problem in a business, such as I came faced with the fact that I either had to lose the business or I had to get some money somewhere to help buy the business back. And that's where I met John. And
Money guy.
Having somebody or a bank, like John, where you can just call up on the phone and he'll talk with you and he'll help you through these things.
Listen, it's easy for me to kind of rave about you guys, and it's pure. It has integrity. I mean, you're a sponsor, yes, but then I decided to move my business banking to Ironworkers Bank. Anytime you move banks, the initial thought is, all right, this is going to be a pain in the butt. You're kind of used to doing it a certain way.
It's like health insurance. You don't want to change your health insurance.
Yeah, the law. You got to remember. The hardest thing is you got to get a new password and you got to remember it and everything else. But I did it. I took the leap, and I'll tell you, it has been a refreshing experience, and you can't really realize until you do it, type thing where. I'm telling you, I don't know if this is a good thing or this is the way you guys normally operate or what, but when I go in, they know me. We've taken selfie pictures together. Kathy has been to my house. Yeah. Tim has been to my, commercial lender has been to my house. I'm sitting here with you guys, the leadership, a trustee, you know.
We all live in the community.
You live in
We're
the
part of
community.
It's truly a local bank.
It's truly a local bank. When we live in a time where everybody says they're a local bank, even the national chains say they're local banks. I met with a lot of banks before I met with you guys, and you guys actually were able to talk about the community in a way that told me that you actually knew the community and cared about the community, and it wasn't just lip service. I commend you for that. I think it is a huge selling point. I think people are starting to realize more and more the value of dealing with your neighbors. That, you know, and I think it's probably been a time when people have thought about their banking relationship in new ways, you know, as people have been dealing with a lot of these different types of loans and things like that. So, you know, I really want to emphasize that fact that it is a wholly different experience banking with you guys, and I think that that's worth its weight in gold.
Well, the bank itself is involved in the community. John is in Rotary. You know, I've been involved in the chamber. We've been involved with local fire departments. We do their golf outings. We've done virtually most organizations in the county we've had something to do with.
And you guys, I mean, you're sponsoring things that, you know, the arts and media, you know, there's lots of, even Junction, you know, our work. I mean, it's, you know, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to mention any names, but I met with one bank before I met with you guys, and they loved what we were doing. They wanted to do it. But we were on about the 6th meeting to go over it again with another team and another layer of decision makers. And I said, you know, and I just heard the way they were talking about the community, and it was about all market and demographics and wealth and affluence, and it had nothing to do with the people. So I literally, I ended the conversation. I said, you know what, guys, we've met 6 times. You know, this isn't that complicated. And to me, they're my neighbors and they're friends. They're not demographic data points. And so I think that the big banks, they're so far down the road on that culturally that even though the marketing might say they're a community bank, you know, when you get behind closed doors in a meeting talking about it, it's a market and they're not people. I'm telling you know. So I mean that's the big exposure. And you see people that go from the big banks to a bank like yours, and they feel free. And I've talked to some of your staff, which, you know, most of them have been with you guys for 20 plus years, sometimes 40 years.
Yes.
Okay. And they're like, no, this is the way we want to bank. You know, so I think that's a huge testament to what you guys have built.
Our average employees there are over 20 years.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Tell me real quick, you know, maybe it's a good question for you, John. You know, 140-year-old bank, hasn't changed names. Give us a real quick background on how did it start and how have you managed to stay the same bank all these years?
Well, the name Ironworkers goes back to when they built ships in Chester, and there was an iron foundry district in the borough of South Chester, and we formed a building and loan to support that area. And originally, we met one night a month, and the people that had money put it up, and it was lent out for houses. And they did an auction. So people came in and said, I want to build a house. Okay, what do you pay on the mortgage rate? And the highest rate got it, because in those days, you didn't have default. I mean, you know, they had the collateral of the real estate and whatever. And so that's what it started out, was a once-a-month building and loan. And we're a mutual, which means we're owned by our depositors. So as they made extra money, it got put into retained earnings and capital. And when I came to Ironworkers in 1978, we had just hit 20 million in assets. And this month, we just hit 200 million in assets. So wow. We've grown tenfold over the 42 years that I've been at Ironworkers. And we deal with Delaware County and Eastern Chester County. That's it. So that's why we know the customers, because we have a limited footprint.
Yeah.
And one of the things I joke with Jack about is where you have people say, no customers too large or small. Well, there are no customers that are too small. but we can only lend up to $3 million as our largest loans to one borrower. So you're not too small to be our customer, but you might be too big.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, most people need less than $3 million in financing, so we can cover maybe 90% of the population with their real estate financing needs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And I from a value standpoint and a focus standpoint, I totally appreciate what you guys do because frankly, publishing has kind of gone the same way where, these publications that have tried to be, cover large areas, 100,000 homes, but they don't relate to any of them. You know what I mean? And so being focused on a specific geography, like for us, it's, hey, Unionville, Chadsford, those are our people, and we're gonna focus on them. And as a result, we get to know them, and we're able to connect with them in their lives and help them in ways. And certainly, a local bank, I can only imagine the help that you've been to families and especially businesses over the past year. I mean, can you give us an example or two of like what that might have looked like helping some businesses, locally through this last, sort of challenging year? Because I think one thing that you said in your article here, Jack, is that, an overlooked or underrated resource is not only the chamber, but the local bank. So like, how did that play out for you guys over the past, year, 2 years?
Well, I'll let John answer that because John's the one who works at the bank day in and day out. As a director, as chairman of the board, we're considered outside directors.
Sure,
We only come in, we don't have to be in every day. So John has to pull the load for all of us.
Well, it's been interesting. We're available, even during the pandemic, where we had the lobby locked up. If you wanted to come in, you could call and make an appointment.
Yep.
And so that's what we did. And if you had to get into your safe deposit box, you can get into your safe deposit box. If you want to apply for a loan, we can either mail you the paperwork or drop it off and throw it through the mail slot, or in certain cases come in and meet with us.
Sure.
And sometimes I had an old stockbroker that said sometimes the best deals you make are the ones you don't make at all. So part of my job is to listen to somebody as a sounding board and say, I want to buy this property. Okay. And discuss it. And is it feasible to buy the property? The fact that you like the property is great, but just liking a piece of real estate doesn't mean it's going to be able to perform and pay for itself.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So sometimes it's a matter of sitting down and discussing and saying, okay, this is what you need to do to make it work. And they're like, oh, I'm glad that's all it is. We're in good shape. We can do this without a problem. I want to put an addition on my house and do that because you like the neighbors and whatever. And that might be better than just buying a new house or building a house from scratch. So we're available. We have good experienced lenders, and sometimes it's just a matter of kicking things around. I had a guy I went to college with, and I run into him quite often at these business mixtures, and he says, John, I'm so glad you're still at Ironworkers, and I'm going to buy a piece of commercial property, and when I do, I'm going to come in and have you to finance it. I said, okay. 2 or 3 years later, I see him. He says the same thing. He says, but I haven't found what I want yet. So this has been going on for 30 years.
Nice.
Because he hasn't been able to find the commercial property that he's comfortable with. But it's not out of the impossible that he might find this commercial property and come in, and when he does, he'll do it. But what really did happen was he had children. So his kids came in and did loans with us. So even though he didn't, that doesn't mean to say he won't, but we wound up financing his children's mortgages.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot, so many stories of banking with families over the generations, which is, again, pretty unique. Usually with a financial services business, there's a pretty high drop-off rate as you go from one generation to the next for different reasons. They don't seem to have the loyalty. So you guys being able to cultivate that, I think, is a rarity. And
We
I
have
think
second and third, in some cases, probably fourth generation.
Yes.
I'm not surprised at all. So
In our case, we got sixth.
how do you avoid getting snapped up by like another bank? I mean, what, you know?
We're a mutual, so there's no stock. We're owned by the depositors.
Got it. Okay. And is that a
So the money that we make goes into our surplus or net worth.
how many banks like you a common thing, or are you guys kind of a rare bird, or how's that work?
It's rare. It used to be a common thing, but
Yeah.
as the small banks get merged out, it's become less common.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're almost like a community trust. We're governed by a board of trustees,
Yep.
and we're responsible to the FDIC, or the Federal Deposit Insurance Company, and then we're also responsible to the Pennsylvania Department of Banking because we have a state bank charter. We're a state
Okay.
chartered bank.
Okay.
And I think because with John and his employees and the members of the board, we're all on the same page as we want to provide a small bank for the community.
That's awesome.
We don't have a desire to become Chase Manhattan or anything like that, you know.
Yeah, but then you still have to deal with the burdens of the federal banking regulation and everything else that you guys are
Yes, it is challenging.
subject to, which I'm sure is a lot of fun. Which
Well, sometimes they make these laws and they don't give a thought that they just figure, well, the banks can handle it. And all those regulations fall back on the small banks as well as the large banks.
yeah, and you guys have done a good job of adapting and figuring out how to navigate that reality.
Oh, yeah.
Sure is a full-time job for somebody.
Well, I tell you, I always tell myself, for somebody who wasn't in the banking business, this isn't exactly something that I'd want to get into now, because
Oh my
they
gosh.
all the regulations that they have to go through. And John's brother Brent handles most of that, and I don't know how he does it, to tell you the truth.
Well, the good thing is he's been with us for 35 years, and so as these regulations got added on, he had a base to build on.
Yeah.
Just learning the new regulations because he knew the existing
Yeah.
regulations, and he does compliance, and he also does the information technology for us. So
That's great.
everybody at the bank has more than one job. That's another thing is if you can do 2 or 3 jobs, that cuts down on the overhead.
Everybody's got to be useful. I love it.
Yes, so
Yeah, no, and you guys, I've met not all the staff. I guess you have plenty more that I haven't met, but everybody I met has been just a real joy to get to know and to work with. Just wrapping up, one thing I love to do is help people understand their neighbors, even outside of kind of the business world a little bit, get to know each other as human beings. I know that Jack, you're big into sports. You got a lot of grandkids. That's
Oh, yeah.
amazing, right? And so, what do you do for fun? Are you hanging out with the family? You playing golf? Like, what do you do for fun?
Well, what I do for fun, I go watch the grandkids play ball.
Nice.
That's what I enjoy most. I do play golf. I got a bunch of guys that I play golf with.
You got any big hitters on any prospects coming out of the family?
No, they're mostly wrestling,
All right.
football, softball, volleyball.
Wrestling was my sport.
Yeah.
I had a brother, so we were always wrestling anyway.
Well,
So
my grandson goes to they're having the state championships next week, and he's going to those. So.
in Hershey?
Yes.
No, nice. Yeah, that's great. That's great. No, those are fun matches to watch. I can't give the sport up. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. I have a wrestling mat in my basement.
Is that right?
Yeah. Love the sport. I mean, 14 grandkids. You must be having a birthday every month.
Yeah, actually, it's 17, but
17?
Yeah, but
Oh, that's right. I read it wrong. I was gonna say you had 3 more since the article came out.
yeah, but who's counting?
Yeah.
Because I can't remember them.
Do you know their names?
Well, actually, there's 2 I get mixed up all the time, but
I have 4 kids, and sometimes I pause until I think of it. But
that's one of my kids' greatest stories about some of the names I've called them over the years.
I bet. 17. Wow, that's amazing. Well, guys, I'm so grateful that you took some time out of your busy schedules to come in here and just talk to me and the community. Really appreciate it. Anything, you know, and the, you know, we're working with you guys to do more events at the bank and help people come down, meet you. You know, you can look at an ad, you can read an article, but really, you know, this is about relationships. I think that's the core of what we're trying to say here. And, you know, I will testify, you can come down, you can meet with folks in a low pressure environment. No one's trying to, there's no quotas over people's heads where they have to sign up so many.
No quotas.
You know what I mean? Which is like, you know, you can come down and just have a conversation with people who are your neighbors, and, you know, they're gonna try their best to absolutely help. Anything we missed or you want to say in closing?
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you very much.
It's our pleasure, guys. All right. On that note, till next time.